Hello everybody, welcome. Today we're going to be looking at the 5-man Ranger build for the Warden Ranger. I run this one obviously in 5-man content, but I also do run it in the new trial, the Souls Collector trial, in both the advanced and the master version, because most of it you're spent, in two 5-man parties, but also you end up being, with all the ads in the green zone, you end up being quite far split from a lot of your team. So this is what I'm running for that dungeon and for 5-man content in general, especially going forward into the new mod when it eventually drops, and hopefully that will be a 5-man dungeon rather than obviously more master dungeons, which is a bit of a master trials, which is a bit of a frustration because they're a lot harder to get through and a lot harder to find people for. But going down, we're going to look at my gear first. So first things first, I'm running the Celestial Headpiece. This is great for front loading those stats and obviously doing a good bit of burst damage. However, it's if you're in a longer fight, the extra 3% combat advantage you get from the headpiece from Emlond is, I would argue, slightly better because crit strike's an easier stat to get and you're not losing that much 40, and 3% recharge speed isn't much. So either one of these two, in a longer fight, yes, this piece here would be would effectively just be a better piece, but for front loading your stats, obviously the Celestial one is going to be slightly better. Emblem chest piece for the combat advantage and accuracy. 15% stats is crazy good and super easy to proc, so it's sort of a must run. I do obviously run sometimes on some of my builds the new crit strike crit severity one, but actually this one gives you better stats, as the new one just gives you defensive stats. Does give you forte, which is good, but I don't really need over 4,000 rating to deflect severity. Moving down, I've got Bindings of the Death Pact. I would consider moving this to the Celestial one when I finally get it. This is obviously not the DPS Celestial one. This is a healing one that's stuck, unfortunately, on my DPS, and my healers still have no Celestial pieces. But I'm still capping my stats, and this isn't a bad arm piece. It gives you good stats. More than anything, it gives you that flat damage gain per enemy in AoE fighting predominantly. So they're not bad, they're just obviously not as good as having just raw stats flat out. I'm back to the perfect set. Gives you good damage bonus, decent stats, not super high in level, but in skill content it doesn't matter so much. Gives you that nice 3% base damage boost, gives you a survivability bonus when your stamina is low. And it also gives you obviously the crit strike crit severity, which is the main reason why I run it, because it fits my build. I obviously have the new weapons, however they give me more stats. They give me on a ranger, they give me critical strike and accuracy, so 10% stats roughly there, and then they obviously give 4% base damage boost, but you have to obviously proc and stack that up to get that bonus. I will at some point get it up to Mythic, because I do have builds where I run this. However, right now I'm finding the perfect set works for my build, and I'm getting more damage currently on my perfect set for my 5-man build than if I ran the newer piece. I'm running the Threads of the Arch Thrall, 15% stats. You can't really beat it on any boots. I do have the DPS boots. I do run that sometimes on my Shackles of Divinity 10-man build. However, if I'm in a group where the healers aren't giving massive on-point shields, this becomes a lot more dangerous, obviously reducing your maximum hit points by 20%. I'll run a Guardian Spirit, I think it is, on the back page, which increases your maximum hit points by 8% when you got one. I'll run one of those, but still, it's still reducing your stats by 12%, which is a lot of hit points reduced. So the boots, the Threads of the Arch Thrall, are what I'm currently running. I'm running the Arcturus Resonating Music Box for the stats. I'm running Armor Egon for the stats. I'm running the Night Flame Sensor as an active / stats. Obviously being a melee DPS, I'll predominantly run that one. And then obviously the Crystal Soulflight. It's nice to have at least 2 active artifacts, even though these are the 2 most popular ones. It's still nice to have 2. And that way you don't completely destroy your build if you go into a dungeon where people are like, oh, we need this, this, and this, and need you to change off it. Changing off the Crystal Soul Flight is much easier. I can put on anything else and it won't overly negatively affect my build, as I'm capping a number of those stats or getting close to capping. Down here, 10% boots, can't really beat it. And then the flat damage gain, can't really beat that either. When I scroll down, I get a 2% bonus to combat advantage, so that's like 12% overall combat advantage from this set, plus the flat damage gain. It's invaluable. Got the Shroomwood set, 7.5% accuracy, 15% recharge speed. Mostly running it for the 6% and the 3% strength bonus, as strength is one of these stats where you don't get it from very many places. Same with your dexterity, your intelligence, especially intelligence for your magical users. You don't get that many bonuses that actually proc this or get this up. So this is one of the most valuable sources of damage in the game, which is why you'll see a lot of people running the Shroomwood set, even though, you know, the Detective set's got more item level. It gives 7% combat advantage and 7% forte. It's crazy amount of stats for a DPS. It's also brilliant for a healer because it gives you outgoing healing, especially a healer that uses a lot of encounter powers, like the Paladin. So yeah, but it doesn't give the same amount of strength. It misses out on 6% strength bonus, so I'll run that. The Bloodlet Veil, mostly here for the accuracy. I can get more combat advantage on one of the newer rings. However, the accuracy and the crit severity is exactly what I need on this build. Combat advantage, obviously, and the power's nice to have. I'm running the Rotsteel Coil of Blight, the advanced of the new dungeon. This is better than the master one from the last dungeon. Unfortunately, I hate to say it, because I went and did it for ages to get this piece. This gives you crit strike and forte. Not bad stats, but crit strike, obviously, you know. And it gives you less crit severity. And it's insane the fact that an advanced ring of the next mod is better than the master dungeon of the mod past. It just doesn't make sense. But it gives me better stats because it gives me that raw combat advantage rather than splitting it between my power and my accuracy, which is what we have on Rangers. It gives me the same crit strike basically, and it gives me 0.5% more crit severity. So that's why I'm running those rings. These are my stats. This is with the Boon glitch on. That's how it's currently sitting. Going to enhancements, I'm running the Sword Coast Tactician, and I'm currently running the Devil's Precision. These ones are almost timed out, but I've got a ton of these saved up for the crit strike accuracy and the combat advantage and power, but also the 2% damage. If I'm in a party where, let's say, the healer has Mystic Aura, and we're running like a paladin's running the crit strike aura, for example, I can take this off and I can run my Etrine and it'll cap. And same thing if someone's running the Blue Fire Eye, an Etrine, I can run without this. I'm going to put Rage of Flames on for the extra 5% damage. Over here I'm running the Tourmaline for the triple stat ×2, and I'm running the Amalite for the triple stat ×2. And obviously 40 down here, as that's going to be the best thing for me. We'll look over at Boon points. Boon points, if anyone doesn't know, the the Boon glitch is Treasure Hunter, Revive Sickness, Treasure Hunter, back to whichever one you want. So I go movement speed. But that will increase all your ratings by about 600, every single one by about 600. I've got power and I've got defense, just for that extra survivability. On the actual campaign boons, all your offensive, flat damage gain for anything that's necessary at that time. Obviously, you don't need dinosaurs. Movement speed, a little bit of the lingering medicine, which I quite like. Forte, a little bit of action point gain, a little bit of recharge speed. And up at the top, I don't use Deathly Rage because by the time you kill things, you're not going to get that much bonus out of this, and realistically you shouldn't be taking 50% damage on a single blow as a DPS. If you're doing that, you're in a bad situation. Over here, this is brilliant because it's per 10% chance on encounter power. Rangers, we do tons of encounter power, so this procs more reliably than other classes. Target takes 1% more damage per rank, Do an additional attack equal to 120 magnitude per rank, and then increase action point gain by 5% per rank for 10 seconds with its procs. So that's really, really, really potent. Over here, life lessons, chance on at will. We do not as many at wills, but we do some at wills, and this will give you obviously all the bonuses you see there. Once again, 5% chance on at will. This is just a bit of a survivability one. Bit of reduced damage, and a little bit of healing to you. 10% chance when you're healed or heal. So obviously that's healed. Especially for heal over time healer, super reliable. Apply heal over time to targets. It's more the bonus to your recharge speed, the 15% recharge speed is why I have it. But also the power is quite nice if you're in a party where they don't have Raptor for some reason, which does happen, unfortunately, but it is what it is. You can build around that and have a build in case you don't have a party with Raptor. And then chance when you're healed to increase your survivability, obviously defense, increase hit points, and stamina, which is nice to have a bit more stamina. In companions, this is not my active. This is just what I run because I like the way it looks. But I have obviously got the main support ones. So you've got the Flapjack, your Dritz, your Scorpion, Etrine, Tutor, Spine Devil. I've got obviously what you see here. Still saving up for that Portobello, unfortunately. Still saving for it. I haven't got it yet. Running Materials Wisdom, bigger they are. Raptor's Instincts, Universal slot has the Neverwinter Knight's Disciple and the Golden Cat for the extra combat advantage. I can run here instead if I want to get real sweaty. I can run like Tomb Spider, for example. Give me a magnitude increase when I'm in against ads rather than a boss fight, but I just don't even bother. I'm not that bothered about being top of the damage board. It's nice when I am, but I'm not that bothered about it. Over here, I've got Crit Strike, flat Crit Strike. I don't like having to proc up and down on Crit Strike because Crit Strike's one of those ones where if it drops off, you crit less, and if you crit less, you do less damage. So I like to make sure my Crit Strike is one of those stats that stays reliably high as much as possible. I don't like it to be one that can drop off all the way down to like 50% rather than the 90 that it needs to be at. I've got Molten Talisman of the Companions, ×2, and Thane Sword Knot of the Companion. These are from Mount Hope now. The stats work best for what I need. And then this one is obviously from the mod 31 Tenny boss, which you can get in the auction house if you want. These ones here, the companion talismans and stuff from Mount Hope now are going real cheap in the auction house if you can't be bothered farming them up. But the Sword Knot and these ones from the Tenny are obviously still quite expensive because the Tenny doesn't drop them that often. Moving on to mounts. Big Beat's Hand. I could change it for AoE. I don't change it for AoE. I don't see the point in changing it for AoE. I don't feel the need to put on an AoE specific companion. I like my Big Beat's Hand. Over 3,000 magnitudes worth of damage. And based off my strength modifier. So I can get my strength modifier. I have quick action to get my action points back. However, I will sometimes, if I'm taking damage relatively often, I might run Providence. I might even support the party sometimes with Mystic Aura, but quick action's what I tend to go for personally. I've got Executioners ×2 for obviously increasing my stats. And then I have 1 Artificers, 1 Tacticians, and 1 Cavalries. Obviously having really fast cooldowns. The Artificer is mostly for going into an artifact call. If my counter powers aren't cooled down, this will get my counter powers on my melee side back, so I can get straight into my rotation, use my Tacticians and my Cavalries to get out as many counter powers as possible. And lastly, we're going to look at powers. I have my single target loadout here. So I have Penetrating Arrow, Stone Strike, Electric Shock, Clear the Ground. Rapid Shot will give you more damage than your Penetrating Arrow and Stone Strike. However, with Rapid Shot, you get more shots off. But with Penetrating Arrow, you get to run around while doing it. That's literally the only real difference. It also, this one does align, so it's a little bit of AoE as well. But I like to be able to hit and move at the same time, and that's what this gives me. And Storm Strike, it does a little bit of AoE at the end. Rapid Strike, it does obviously hit more often, hits faster, so it's technically higher DPS on single target boss fights, but if you're having to move around a lot, or you're doing ad grips and stuff, penetrating arrow I personally find is better. So in the X I have Thorn Ward, Thorn Strike, Split the Sky, Throw Caution Y, and in B, Hindering Shot, Hindering Strike, Forest Ghost, and Call the Storm. Down here I have Seeker's Vengeance, and depending on if I am in a group, I might change this about, for instance. So normally if I'm on single target, I will run this, take off Aspect of the Pack, and obviously that would give me extra combat advantage if I'm not going to get the combat advantage from somewhere else. However, I don't need that most of the time. And then down here I've got my feats, same on both sides. I don't bother switching between. I use Focus. I know I could get more for Death Strike, however, I don't like stand switching because I always forget to do it, I just like being able to know if I just do the same encounter power rotation, I'm not going to mess anything up. So you can get more damage with Death Strikes. I personally just go for Focused and save my right bumper a little bit of life. Storm's Recovery for the 3-second cooldown on encounter powers. And Blade Hurricane, obviously for the at-wills doing double damage. This is more so for ad grips than anything. You will get a little bit more on single target Storm's Conduit that I personally find. If you're running Rapid Strike and you have obviously Blade Hurricane, you will do a little bit more damage because you can cast these in between your melee and counter powers. Skirmisher's Gambit to get my stats up, as opposed to the Wind. I figured that they with all the flat damage bonus and stuff, To the Wind is slightly better, but you don't get the beautiful cap stats. So, and then Nature's Envoy for the 15% extra on Forest Ghost, extra damage on Forest Ghost. My single target, my AoE is X Mars from Rush Borders Escape, just to get in and out of combat fast. Constricting Arrow and Steel Breeze for AoE damage, and then Hindering Shot and Hindering Strike. Hindering Strike being your main melee AoE. I'll run Crushing Roots, depending. I can run Aspect of the Serpent for a bit more damage, but I'll always run Twin Blade Storm for the additional 8% damage. So what we're going to do is have a little look at how this stuff performs and how it runs. And we'll go from there. So pretty easy with the what am I saying? With the melee, melee AoE, I'll use Marauder's Rushmore's Escape to get in. You know, it just depends. If there's a very, very, very large ag group, I might not go in. I might just pop my Corn of Arrows, and then each of my hits do 200 magnitude for 3 seconds, and I pop my Hindering Shot, just to keep that 300 magnitude up. It also helps cool down your Constricting Arrow. I'll also rush in sometimes, so I'll switch stance, use Marauder's Rush. I'll go in, use my 2 melee encounters, and I'll rush back out, and then I will use my my ranged Clear the Ground, Clear the Ground, alright? It is Electric Shot and Clear the Ground, Electric Shot, doing 100 magnitude times 2 for your Blade Hurricane, and obviously that's then doing 200 magnitude. If the group is particularly big or tough, I might use my daily, so I use half my daily, and now all of a sudden I have 300 magnitude at will attacks for 10 seconds, which is a very, very big hitting thing. And then once again, I can dash in, I can dash out, get away, and then I can use my at-will to move while shooting, getting closer, let's say, use my encounters, and it's simple. It's a more fun and dynamic playstyle than a raw AoE where you would use one extra melee encounter power. You do slightly less damage, but this is more fun. It also is very good for when you do come across that single target enemy, because you actually do have a good bit of single target potential on this build. Marauder's Escape, Marauder's Rush doing over 500 magnitude each, Constricting Arrow doing like another 500 magnitude, and your Hindering Strike doing another 500 magnitude. You can make it do a good bit of single target damage as well. But now we're going to look at the single target build itself, how we actually play it. And I need 25 seconds to fully proc the weapons. So while that's happening, I'll show you my consumables. I use Flask of Potency, Squash It. I'll use Prime Rib, and I'll use Wildstorm Elixir, and I will use Invocation Blessing. I'll just need to click on it enough till I find the bonus that I would like. So I will do this one. I think I've actually still got stuff procced and up. Yeah, I do. Perfect. So I'll quickly show you guys the artifact rotation that I would normally use. So I'll just get cooldowns back. Excellent. Okay, so artifact calls coming up. My melee encounters are not off cooldown, and then I can do daily. That's what I'm doing. Mount artifact. 1, 2, 3 encounters. 1, 2, 3 after my daily. Use my mount, my belt item. 1, 2, 3, just like that. Then back to my range. My normal rotation is basically 2 range, 3 melee, and obviously at wills. 1, 2, and then 3. Switch stance, hindering shot, and then 2 dailies, and then back to my normal rotation. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to quickly show an artifact column, show the damage. This is not scaled. What I'm going to show in the next dummy. So I'll go over, keep everything procced, and then I'll show a normal artifact call. Never mind. I've still got 10 seconds or so left on that artifact. I didn't even realise. Right, now I'll show it. Okay, pop these, and 1 and 2. Artifact, 1, 2, 3, daily, 1, 2, belt item, mount, 1, 2, 3. Nice bit of damage. Ranger's got a good bit of burst damage, and the frequency of using a daily means you can use a tactician fairly often. So I'm going to have a quick look at my stats now. So as you see here, 95, 90, 105, that's actually lower than usual. Let's see why. Yeah, 105.3, 119, 90, 90, 95, yeah. So obviously I'm going to be getting bonuses from places. I'm going to be getting a bonus from obviously my Spider Totem, which will be 2.5% combat advantage, which would be very, very nice. And I'm going to be getting, hopefully, a... oh, that's right. Yeah, I was using this instead of Blade Storm. That's right. Because that would actually give me the combat advantage I needed. That's right. Sorry, I forgot about that. This allows me to get my combat advantage without the use of attack tactics. If I do have people with pack tactics and such things, or, you know, we've got a flapjack, a tutor, and a portobello, I don't need to run that. That's right. So as long as I have the right grip, I can cap the combat advantage. However, like, you know, if I've got a portobello, I can cap it. If I don't have a portobello, I can cap it. I can always cap combat advantage as long as I have 1 tutor and 1 flapjack. Sorry about that. Completely forgot what I was saying there. And then normally I would spend a bit of time getting this into power, getting that bonus into power, and then all I need is a Mystic Aura and my Raptor times 5 for my cap on my power. So anyway, that is my Ranger Warden build for 5-man content particularly. Now, as I said, there's no real up-to-date 5-man dungeons, but this will help you run older dungeons, and it will also help with the new trial, as I personally run the 5-man, and I find that's giving me the best damage in that dungeon. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed this video. I hope it was helpful or insightful in any way. If you've got any questions, please leave a comment. I'll be happy to answer them as best I can. Anyway, thank you for watching, and goodbye for now.